Do you know what Gwaan, where you can get news about the Jamaican culture and just learn about how Jamaicans are doing, as I said, yard and abroad.
You get to learn a new Jamaican patois word or even a Jamaican phrase.
I look forward to the patois word of the day.
The patois word is pasa pasa.
Word today is taco ram.
Our word of the day is duffy.
Twang. No little twang. Not true.
I enjoy tuning in to What a Gwaan.
It happens every Friday at 7 p.m. So check them out. And bye from Toronto.
Dans Québec et la Jamaïque, écoute What a Gwaan. Yes, What a Gwaan.
I am a big fan of What a Gwaan.
Relevant and entertaining, so keep up the good work.
Watch What a Gwaan.
Big up yourself. What a Gwaan.
What a Gwaan. Yes, What a Gwaan.
Watch What a Gwaan.
Always say I'm going to Gwaan in a yard. Check it out. 7 p.m. every Friday. Hello, welcome everyone. It is Friday, August 18, and your girl from Bungatown is back in the building because you know what time when girl from Bungatown is here? That means What a Gwaan is on. So put your head through the window, out the door, or send a text, do a WhatsApp, do something, but make everybody know that What a Gwaan is on with your favorite host, the girl from Bungatown. And today, and as always, reporting to you live from Calgary, aka Mokinsis. We are on Treaty 7 territory. So welcome back to What a Gwaan. Special welcome to those listening on Fresh FM Radio London. Just to let you know too that What a Gwaan is also available as a podcast. You can find it on Podbean, Google, Amazon, iHeart, Player FM, and all other major podcasting platforms. If you have any trouble, visit our website at www.whatagwaan.ca and you can connect from any of the links there to listen to What a Gwaan on podcast. Yay, isn't that good? So another week has gone by. Summer is ending in my neck of the woods. It rained today and I'm wearing a sweater. And I really do hope, even though the summer is ending, you are excited as I am that the performance of the Jamaican and the Canadian track and field teams will be at the World Championships that is starting today in Budapest. I am sure you know where Mo's bias will be, right? Red, black, green, and gold to the world. Today, we will be having a look at the City of Calgary's anti-racism strategic plan. Jamaicans and other immigrants in the diaspora deal with racism in many different situations. And when a municipality makes a defined effort to tackle it, we should pause, take notice, and understand what it means. Dr. Linda Kongnetiman-Pansa from the City of Calgary will join us later in A Time to Reason. So make sure you stay tuned for that because that is coming up shortly. But before we go any further, you know what time it is. Yes, it is patois time. And this is the moment we share a word or phrase from the beautiful Jamaican patois. And today's words are sheg up. So when somebody say, my youth, me I go shag you up, or look how I go shag up the girl there, or look how me I go shag up the girl there, or the boy, why me keep saying girl. What does that mean? So you know, I like when you engage with me and I like when you keep things hip, hot and happening. So do that by commenting down below what shag up mean. Use it in a sentence and also tell me what it means, right? So keep the thing lively and keep it coming because guess what? When you comment, you get to hear your name shouted out on Gwaan, and because we're there all over the world, everybody are gonna hear your name. So remember, keep it lively. So last week we had Lisa Rotty and Rona Dunwell, the elected Canada representatives on the Global Jamaican Diaspora Council, join us. They shared lots of great information about the council and its role and how the average Jamaican in the diaspora can connect to Jamaica. Did you know you can pay your Jamaican property taxes online? Yes, you sure can. So, hey, PICA and other services are looking at better ways to serve the diaspora, and there are ways to have your voices heard. The council members promise to have more engagement opportunities for the community, including a conference that is scheduled for September 23rd, which will have a hybrid format to connect Jamaicans in the diaspora virtually and in person. We hope you got some good information from Lisa and Rona. We love it when you engage with us, so keep those comments and feedback coming. If you missed last week's show, be sure to check out the replay on YouTube or Facebook. You can also find those links on our website at www.whatagwaan.ca. And as always, Gwaan is 2 A's, all right? We keep saying Watagwan National big, but as I say, we want it there on a whole circular world. We want it there everywhere, even at Timbuktu, wherever Timbuktu is. But in order to do that and make it bigger, follow us on all our pages, our social media pages. So that's Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and on Instagram, right? And when you do go on there and follow, make sure you like and you comment, because that does some algorithm thingamabob, and it bring it up more on other people's pages so we can grow. All right, we now want to share some events happening across Canada. In Calgary, CarryFest 2023 is on right now. 3 days of Caribbean culture on show. Right now, Pan in the Park is going on. Tomorrow, Saturday, August 19th, is Carnival in the Park, starting with the parade at 10 a.m. on Stephen Avenue. Swappy from Trinidad and Jax from Toronto will be performing. Jason J.W. Williams will be the MC, while Maisel, the sound master, will be the DJ at the controls. The festival closes with the reggae cool down on Sunday at 11 a.m. There will be performances from Yolanda Sargent and Egyptian, with DJ Gummy at the controls. All the action is at the Shaw Millennium Park at 1220 9th Avenue Southwest, Calgary. This is a free event with food vendors, beer garden, kids zone, and more. For more information, go to www.carryfestcalgary.com. In Montreal, the Collective Kitchen Project and the Jamaican Association of Montreal presents free family cooking classes for families with at least one child up to 5 years old. Join them every Monday at the JCA 4065 Jean Talon W at 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. to learn and create new recipes. Take home new skills and a meal. To register or for more information, email jamfootstepsprogram@gmail.com or call 514-737-8229. Next session will be on August 21st. Now a little bit of news from Dungayard. Jamaica's unemployment dips to historic low. Jamaica's unemployment rate fell to a new low according to the latest findings from the April 2023 Labor Force Survey, which saw more people working now than at any other time in the country's history. The Statistical Institute of Jamaica, Statin, which reported the data Tuesday, said the unemployment rate was 4.5%. Director General of Statis, Carol Coy, presenting the finding in a virtual media briefing, said that the latest figure was 1.5 percentage points lower than that for the comparable period of 2022. It also ranks below the latest reported July employment rate, which stood at 6.6%.
Africa Fashion Week London is back. The largest annual fashion week in Europe, profiling African-inspired designs in its entirety, invites you to its spectacular two-day event. Whether you want to network with fashion industry gurus or wish to purchase a one-of-a-kind Afrocentric memento in our renowned exhibition marketplace, Africa Fashion Week London promises to immerse you in all things Africa and more. Tickets are selling fast now. Get your tickets at eventbrite.co.uk. Also, don't miss the opportunity to showcase or exhibit your designs at the Fashion Week. Register now at africafashionweeklondonuk.com. Africa Fashion Week London. Book your tickets now.
We are now at my next favorite part of the show, and that is A Time to Reason with none other than the big man himself, Donovan Simon. So go grab your cocoa tea, your coffee tea, your tough crackers, or your bread, whichever you choose. But come back, cock up your foot, because you know what time it is? Time for all a little reason.
This has been a great discussion. David, thanks for taking the time. All right.
That's up, Mr. Nicole.
There.
You there? How things? You like the weather?
me say me have my sweater after burning yesterday.
I tell you, from 30, yesterday was at 35 degrees here in Calgary. I think we don't have about, it says 11 on my computer.
Yep.
But you know, for those of us who have lived in this side of the world, that's how it goes. We appreciate that it's still over zero.
Yes.
And I think we have a few more weeks of summer.
Yes.
And all of that. Right?
Yes.
Today we're going to do a local reasoning.
Yes.
So even though the World Championships and Independence just done, we got a chance to get some discussions going on the City of Calgary's anti-racism strategic plan. So we jumped on that one and say, you know what, let's find out about it.
I agree.
Today we're going to jump into that discussion and find out something. So
yeah, man.
I we can learn, and then I'll come back a little more and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, all man. Right? Cool, have a good reason.
All right.
Yeah, man.
Welcome to another Time to Reason here on Gwaan. And as always, we're trying to deal with the topics that affect all of us. Today, we're going to be talking about anti-racism and specifically about the City of Calgary's anti-racism strategic plan. And it's my absolute pleasure to have somebody that I've known for a while in the wings to come share with us what's happening there. Dr. Linda Kongnetiman-Pansa. She's the current manager of the anti-racism program at the City of Calgary, at least for the last 2+ years. She's been with the Alberta Health Services for over 19 years. She's an instructor with University of Calgary and the University of British Columbia. She's been a consultant in anti-racism for a long time, 20 odd years. A graduate of the University of Calgary, a proud one, I'm sure, but most importantly, a community person. And that's what I know her for. It's my absolute pleasure to have Dr. Linda Kongnetiman-Pansa join us to hear more about the City of Calgary's anti-racism strategic plan. Linda, welcome to Gwaan. How are you?
I'm really good, Donovan. Thank you so much. It's a privilege to be part of the program and to be able to spend this time with you.
Yeah, I appreciate the time, and we're going to jump in because there's a lot to cover. I saw you at City Hall sometime recently, and I'm like, there's my friend. But more importantly, there is my friend addressing an important topic, anti-racism in the city of Calgary. And maybe where we should start is helping us to understand the primary drivers behind the development of the City of Calgary's anti-racism strategic plan. What was behind it?
Thank you. That's such a critical question for us to be able to reflect on that today. And so it all started following the death of George Floyd in May of 2020. And there were lots of conversations happening. But one of the pivotal things that happened is that more than 70,000 people signed an online petition, and it was circulated by the Canadian Cultural Mosaic Foundation. So we can't take credit of that. But they were calling for a consultation on systemic racism in Calgary. And so with that, council responded in June 2020 with a notice of motion entitled Calgary's Commitment to Anti-Racism. And aligned with that, the city of Calgary then had a public hearing where we had over 150 Calgarians talk about their experiences with racism, racial discrimination, and systemic racism. And having people really discuss bullying and racial inequities, harassment, tokenism, discomfort at work, systems distrust, psychological racial trauma, and other overall frustration impacts them in who they are as a human being, really resonated with council, resonated with city leaders, and the acknowledgement came that systemic racism exists in Calgary. And City Council directed city administration to immediately engage in meaningful re-evaluation of the city's internal practices, programs, services, and policies to ensure that we journey towards becoming an anti-racist organization.
Well, I like the idea of what we want to become, and maybe more specifically, are there any primary desired outcomes that are listed in the City of Calgary's anti-racism strategic plan? And where will it take us?
So there are, when we look at how and where we would like to be in becoming an employer of choice, in becoming an organization where people feel like they belong, not because of the particular way of what belonging looks like, but they belong based on their authentic self. There were several things that came out of the conversations we were having with staff, but also with community. And the conversation that was happening with Indigenous, Black, and diverse racialized communities and individuals and employees really centered around five things in terms of dismantling systemic racism and transforming lives.
Mm-hmm.
So the 5 areas that really out looking at developing and implementing anti-racism education and training.
Mm-hmm.
Because without knowledge, we will succumb. If
Right.
we don't know what it is about and where colonialism has impacted systems, then we're bound to fail. So
Mm-hmm.
that was one of the first things. The second thing was to promote and integrate disaggregated race-based data. And
Yeah.
so every organization can claim that they have data and they collect data. But when it comes to really understanding how data impacts people, we need to be able to collect race based data that we then can really disaggregate and understanding exactly what's happening to people and how we could address this for people. And so the third area is about increasing representation of indigenous, black, and diverse racialized peoples in positions of leadership. Because again, many organizations can say they hire everybody. Look at how diverse we are. But then when you look at leadership, there's no representation
Yeah. Profile. Yeah.
this particular group. So that's one area we wanted to focus on. And the two last one, the fourth one is to develop and promote and deliver racially equitable programs, services,
Program. Yeah.
policies, and systems because the community identified and also staff that what were not everything, but some of the programs that we're delivering aren't centered around the people that we serve. And then
Right.
the last one is we need spaces where people feel comfortable and confident and safe to talk about racism, to talk about systemic racism without feeling like there will be repercussions. And one of the things I've seen is that more and more we're becoming comfortable in talking about these issues, and they're difficult issues, but
Oh yeah.
nonetheless, we need to talk about them. So those are the areas I would say that the city is focusing on in terms of what are the outcomes that we want.
I like that, and I'll come to that back in a moment. But I want to maybe zero in on maybe some definitions before we dig into this some more. Are there some definitions that you'd want to share with us? For example, when the City of Calgary's anti-racism strategic plan says racism, what does that mean?
So when we talk about racism, we really would like to help people understand that yes, the books talk about it's a social construct, but that social construct has an impact. And so the impact is that individuals belonging to a specific race are some feel like they're inherently superior to other races. And that has an impact. And that is often reflected in unequal privileges and how certain people treat other people. And so this is a racially inspired unequal treatment that is sustained by individual behaviors and attitudes, but it's also sustained in systems of governance. And these systems of governance in organizations, they work together to maintain that status quo. And so this is impacting recent immigrants, it's impacting landed immigrants, but it's also impacting people that have permanent resident status because it isn't a social construction only.
Right. So we understand, and Calgary is known for its diversity. It's proud of its diversity, right? We've heard it over and over. When we look at the anti-racism strategic plan, Linda, talk to us about some of the timelines and milestones that it includes, and what we should look for when.
So one might say that you can never end in terms of finalizing a strategic plan. What I do know is that we have a beginning. And so we started this out by launching the plan in 2020. But we also started the work by launching the plan in 2023. But we started the work way back in 2020 with all the people that were involved. And so when we think about it is it is a daily, it is hourly, it is weekly, and then it is looking at reviewing it annually. So based on timing, we say that it is from 2023 to 2027, but it doesn't end in 2027. In
Right.
2027, we would like to take a pause and overall look at, well, in these 5 years, how does the organization fare now compared to when we started doing this work in 2020?
Mhm. Right. And maybe you can help us then with applicability. So is the City of Calgary's anti-racism strategic plan applicable to all the agencies? Does it apply to the police service? Like, what's its applicability?
So speaking of the Calgary Police Services, we have a really good relationship with the anti-racism team at the Calgary Police Services, and so we've had ongoing engagements. There's mutual support and collaboration, and that was in the form of town halls, public safety forums, their strategic planning, our strategic planning, and discussion sessions. So, what has happened is that these engagements have focused on addressing the lived and living experiences of systemic racism and racialization so that we could all understand the specific challenges in the specific areas where racial inequities may exist for individuals. So we can start thinking about what would an equitable service for everyone looks like,
Mm.
regardless of race. So when you ask the question, is the City of Calgary anti-racism strategic plan applicable to all agencies and organizations? Yes, it isn't just for the city as a municipality. It
Mhm.
is ensuring that the city where we live, work, and play as well, that it is a reflection of doing away with racism, doing away with systemic racism, ensuring that public safety is guaranteed for everybody, but also ensuring that people's dignity and their respect stays intact no
Mhm.
matter what their background is, no matter what their skin color is, no matter the color of their voice, no matter their immigration status. So I would say we're trying to ensure that different businesses, even, and not for profit, interested parties in the communities, that we take them along the journey to be
Right.
able to reflect on this very important issue of dismantling systemic racism.
And when we talk about the journey, right? Talk to us a little bit about where these different agencies would fit in, or organizations, community organizations, etc. So I know they were involved in the consultations, and I know people who made submissions in part of that process. But now that the plan is developed, where do they fit in the execution of it?
So what we would like is for people to feel like they are part of the solution.
Mhm.
So it's not like one organization or interested party or institution fit in a particular way, but through ongoing engagement, we can come together and identify what are the anti-racism actions
Right.
that they would like to work on. And not because they just pick it, but it's because there is a facilitated conversation in understanding the issues and understanding what inequities mean to people they serve for that particular action to emerge. So for example, we've had conversations with organizations in the community who brought their strategic plan or their strategy that they're working with, and we put it alongside the City of Calgary anti-racism strategic plan to see how they could work together
Mhm.
and how we could align. And so some organizations would say to us, oh, in our area, we really struggle with um, disaggregated race-based data.
Yeah.
So how can you help us really focus on developing it? And so then it's more about what are the type of instruments they could use, what are the questions they could ask to make that work for them. And some areas have identified that we absolutely don't have any representation of indigenous, black, and diverse racialized people in positions of leadership.
Mhm.
Then it's about, okay, so what are some of the things that you could do in your HR policies? How can you review your hiring policies and interview policies to make sure that you have the opportunity to incorporate everybody that's needed in those positions as well? So again, it is about engagement,
Mhm.
facilitated conversations to come up with anti-racism actions that make sense, that aren't going to be shelved, that is achievable. Because sometimes we aim so high that we forget that it is about the people and
Mhm.
it is about bringing solutions in a situation that has existed for hundreds of years
Yeah.
that we now need to dismantle. So it takes a collaborative effort to do this.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because the idea, I'll tell you, I've lived in Calgary for over 2 decades, and I remember somebody once asking me, have I ever experienced racism? And I paused because I said, until you bring it up, I never really defined certain actions as racism because I didn't grow up thinking about racism, right? So here I am in a circumstance where you're asking me if a particular action is racist. So I'm zeroing in on that because there's a lot that the community at large, right, both racialized, marginalized, and non-marginalized, will need to understand. So help us through that in terms of where the strategic plan speaks to both sides of the equation because there's so much to learn, right?
There is so much to learn. And so we learn with the community and we try to grow with the community. But one of the things that makes the City of Calgary anti-racism strategic plan unique is that it wasn't developed by the City of Calgary. It was developed with the voice of over 2,700 community members, over 3,000 employees with indigenous elders voices as well. What it did is when we were looking specifically in all the 5 focus areas,
Mm-hmm.
also look at now how can we then bring changes into the community? What is the community outcome? How can we bring changes for employees? And how can we impact it in such a way that public safety, public dignity, public order is impacted as well? So then you have a fulsome way of looking at moving the way forward rather than it is a City of Calgary piece of work that only the City of Calgary can do and execute, and it needs to only be internal. So that's what I would say in terms of how the community piece fits in. And so ensuring that we co-develop and we implement with the community, because that's going to help with accountability. We also need to make sure that when we're talking about positions of leadership, it's not only within the city, but also
Mm-hmm.
across the city of Calgary as a place to live, where Indigenous, Black, and diverse racialized peoples feel like they can apply for positions based on their education, based on their skills, and get the right position. And so we're not talking about a statistical quota that we would like to achieve. We're talking about people with their experiences and education getting into a position that they deserve, but also making sure that um, we look at the community as a network. And we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about creating safe spaces and processes, ensuring that those networks become stronger, have the knowledge they need to ensure that people in the community can experience safety in
Yeah.
what they're doing and where they are and where they're working.
You used a word earlier, accountable, which I want to zero in on a little bit, because the creation of a plan in and of itself is fantastic. Uh, how and what's the mechanism behind the accountability for the execution of this strategy? How and where will the community be able to kind of look at the progress being made and assess if we're getting to where we want to, and how quickly or how slowly? What does that look like, Linda?
Thank you, Donovan. That is another good question that you took time to really develop. So, when you think about implementing and evaluating anti racism actions for accountability, as we're developing this, it was a major consideration, not only for this, but in terms of racial justice in our city, because people just didn't have the trust that this would be something that would be meaningful to the community, that this is something that would happen. But because the city of Calgary is committed to racial justice, we would like to measure, we would like to evaluate, and we would like to share the progress of the strategic plan with all interested parties. So when we did the rollout, we had a community rollout as well, in fact, two. And then we started connecting with individual communities. Now we're in the process for the fall to do a larger community engagement by reporting back and talking to the community in terms of what will be happening, what is happening. Accountability helps with transparency,
Mm-hmm.
but it also helps with building trust. It also ensures that the community is aware of how racial justice and racial equity is achieved. And the way we're looking to accountability in line with the City of Calgary anti-racism strategic plan, it has to be individual.
Mm-hmm.
So individual accountability, every employee, but also every Calgarian need to participate in anti-racism education and learning and development initiatives. That's one example.
Mm-hmm.
There's also the leaders in the organization. We have executive leadership, we have other senior leaders, and middle management. They need to be championing the work. They also need to be leading and advancing racial justice, and including looking at allocating funding and resources across the organization to ensure that the anti-racism actions that we would like to take can be achieved.
Yeah.
There's department and business unit accountability, ensuring that the actions are discussed and there's a trickle down effect and
Yeah.
a bottoms up approach in terms of how we're looking at implementing the action. But the best one is the collective accountability,
Yeah.
because you can have the leadership, the individual one, department one, but if there's not that collective accountability where city administration, employees, community members, other interested parties demonstrate that there is a shared effort, there's a shared understanding, there's the shared accountability. When we take actions to remove systemic racism, we won't get anywhere with
Yeah.
this.
I mean, ultimately, it's the way we're going to feel about our city, right? People are going to come to Calgary, or for those of us who have lived in Calgary for a while, we're going to feel a particular way. I want to dig down on that for a minute, though, on the schools and the education, the school boards, because I've heard the racial justice topic in the schools. Is this a part or included in the City of Calgary's anti-racism strategic plan, and how is that piece working?
So, just like how all organizations and institutions in the community um, are part of the strategic plan, it's no difference with um, the, the education system. So, we've worked very closely with different educational institutions to ensure that what we were developing um, resonated with students, resonated with the different populations that these education systems serve. So it's a matter of continuing to align with those organizations to ensure that what they're already doing, we can support them in ways, and they can also support the city of Calgary so that we continue that mutual work that we all have taken on, and ensure that there's no redundancy. So,
Yeah.
for example, if we develop some great training or education, that we could share it with them, because we might have the resources to do that. But it could be that they already have training and education that we could look at, and we could look at asking permission to borrow. So it's about working together for a common goal.
Yeah.
Common goal is to dismantle systemic racism. So what would it look like for different organizations, including the education system?
And I mean, when you talk about dismantling it, it's how do we dismantle it across the world? Now, I am sure that there are other municipalities, other different agencies of government that are doing things like this. How do we compare? Are other cities that you're aware of creating anti-racism strategic plans? Where does Calgary sit in the mix of all these municipalities? Are we the example everybody's following? Like, what can you share with us on where we
Well,
sit?
it's too early to say that we're an example, because we're one of the youngest in terms of starting this work. Because if you look at it in terms of really focus, this is when we launched our strategic plan. But there are other municipalities that have been ahead of us and are doing tremendous work as well. The city of Toronto is doing great work. Um, the city of Vancouver as well, Edmonton, Montreal, but also in Winnipeg, Manitoba. There's great work that's coming out of all these places. I think one of the things that is important is to look at each jurisdiction, each area has something that they're trying to address, and that's the forefront of what they're experiencing. So we would like to make sure that we align ourselves with the work that's happening in other municipalities and other cities, so that again we contribute to the greater good for Canada, one. But we also make sure that we don't feel like we're doing the work alone, and that we align with what's already been developed, so that um, because of the limited resources that we have in this area, to make sure that we partner, to make sure that we work together, and because there's already great work being done. I can't compare it. We shouldn't be comparing, but what I can say is that the City of Calgary is really working towards becoming an anti-racist organization, and leadership, city council, the mayor, they're really behind the work and ensuring that the resources are in place to be able to do the work.
Well, that's good to know. The time is ticking, and I have maybe one more. As we package all of this, Linda, there's so many elements to it. So if we were to pick out three things, and maybe we revisit those five key pillars, so that anybody watching the broadcast or listening to it can take those away. So the five key focus areas for the City of Calgary's anti-racism strategic plan, wrap them up for us so that we walk away with that one bundle.
Well, that is difficult. But if I would say something, it's this: everybody has a role to play.
Yeah.
Your role is not smaller or bigger than someone else. So when you think about dismantling racism, think about what is one thing that you could do today to make the life of someone else worth living, no matter what their skin color, no matter what the color of their voice is, and no matter their country of origin, because we all came from somewhere except for indigenous peoples in this country.
Mm-hmm.
So wrapping it up, I would say, let's get behind the strategic plan, get involved, and let's make sure that as a community, we can ensure that everybody in our city feels safe, but also that we can ensure public order, public dignity, and public safety, because we're striving to become an anti-racist city.
All right. Well, with that, I'm going to call it a wrap. It's been fantastic having you on Watagwan and Dr. Linda Kongnetiman-Pansa, folks. Appreciate the time, appreciate the insight into what the City of Calgary is doing around anti-racism, and continue doing what you're doing. We appreciate the work.
Thanks for having us. I appreciate that.
All right. Take care.
This has been a great discussion. David, thanks for taking the time. All right.
If you unmute, Nicole. There you go. That makes a whole difference in 2023.
Oh my God.
You can't blame racism for that either.
Don't it? I cannot even attempt to try that. Oh Lord.
Yeah, another discussion as we kind of think about, what's happening in our city. And, one of the things I was saying to Linda in the conversation there was, until certain things were labeled racism, sometimes immigrants don't consider and realize that that is what it is.
Yes.
And therefore, to dismantle it requires a fair amount of education and understanding, especially when it is subtle, especially when it is not always overt. And it's good that at least there's acknowledgement at the city level that there is racism, because there are many people who will suggest that there isn't.
Yeah, which is
right?
I find very funny, but hey.
And well, understanding that their point of view, maybe because they don't necessarily see it in practice, or they might not necessarily be perpetrators of the behaviors that occur in other circumstances. Like I said, I've lived there many years, and there are many things that I never considered as racist. And therefore, if somebody were to have walked into that circumstance and say, well, we need to break down this particular circumstance, right? I'll tell a quick story before I go.
Yeah.
In one of my first jobs here in Calgary, back in the early 2000s, I applied for a manager's role. And I had come here with many years of experience as a manager. And at the time, I was told, after I had an interview, that I was not promoted to manager because I didn't have the experience, or there was a reason given that made no sense, quite frankly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the person who was promoted had limited to no experience as a manager. And it was years afterwards that I attributed that to a racist approach within the organization.
Yeah.
But at the time, I just kind of, shrug my shoulders and move right along.
Right along.
So
Yeah.
it happens. It is a reality in our world, and it is good, in my opinion, that an organization like the City of Calgary takes on. Now, what comes out of it is another story. Let's see.
Right.
10 years from now, 20 years from now, people moving into or living in the city can feel that there is a culture and a set of practices and policies that definitely allow for a space where everybody
that keeps them safe too, right?
Has their place. Because I think that is important across the world.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, there you go. Another one is out, and
yes.
Hopefully this one come out tomorrow, and it warm up a little bit. And black, white, or yellow, boy, I've got to deal with whatever the weather offers. So
whatever the weather is tomorrow.
All right, take it easy.
Yeah, man. All right. What good.
Well.
All right. You listened, you heard, and if you're living in Calgary, I hope that gives you some semblance of hope. And I hope it's not a situation where you live in a hope and dead in a constant spring, because it's nice that we have these things, but then you get to the point where you feel like it's hopeless because you don't see anything changing. Did anyone comment? Because we are now up to the part of patois time. Miss Lil, me love the lady here, man. Lilith, good evening to you, Miss Lil. Better late than never. One love to you too. I can count on Miss Lilith to make a comment. So I'm going to have to create multiples of Miss Liliths to watch what I go on so they can comment. Big up yourself, Miss Lil. Big up yourself. Now back to the patois word. So sheg up means do harm, mess up, or a reprisal. So when somebody say me I go sheg you up, well in the Jamaican sentence, then say them I go sheg you up, say I know nothing good. It I go be something for talk about, right? So sheg up, write it down in your diary. One more word, maybe you haven't heard it for a long time. The other day me hear it and it's a fussing many years. Me actually hear it and I was like, that should be the word today. So reprisal, do harm, mess up. Remember to keep it coming. Remember to keep me entertained. Remember to interact with us here on What a Gwaan. And you do that by commenting. So the patois word for today was sheg up. So sheg up means mess up, reprisal, or do harm. So for next week's show, we're going to be looking back again at Windrush 75 because we're celebrating this year. So Windrush 75 and Jamaicans in the diaspora. Next week, we take another look at the 75th anniversary of the Windrush migration from Jamaica to Great Britain. We will be joined by the chief architect behind the celebrations that have occurred in Jamaica and the UK. Ruddy Page from Making Connections Work and Fresh FM London. We'll get some update on how Jamaicans in the UK responded to the celebrations, plus the recognition that the celebrations have received. We will also get a peek into other things planned to further celebrate the trailblazers that were part of the Windrush movement. So plan to join us next week, and also plan to comment, because when you don't comment, it's like you shake me up. Eh? See what I did there? You can now share your message on Watagwan National while we share our stories and experiences. Advertise with us as we grow. Contact us via watagwan.ca or any of our social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and I just said the website, and YouTube. You can send us messages on any of those platforms, or you can connect with us on our email at watagwancnd@gmail.com. And as always, Gwaan is 2 A's. Again, Watagwan need to be big, 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 big. And how you make that big, big, big is to follow us on our social media handles: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And once you follow us, ensure to like and to comment on things that you see happening on the page, because as I said earlier, it did a little algorithm thingamabob there. For the techie people, you'll know what that means. So it will make Watagwan spread far and wide. So this was another wonderful week, and we're going into the weekend. Remember, if you're in Calgary, please to check out Carry Fest. It's happening this weekend. And as your girl from Bungertown is checking out for another week, have a great week. I want to walk good. See you all next week.